The city before the storm. In 1900, Galveston, Texas was a golden American city. Built on a narrow sandbar, it was called the Wall Street of the Southwest. It had electric lights, telephones, streetcars, and the busiest port in the region. Wealthy families built grand mansions facing the Gulf of Mexico. Nearly 40,000 people lived there, believing their city was invincible. But there was a deadly weakness. The highest point in the city was less than 9 feet above sea level. Engineers had proposed building a seawall, but the idea was dismissed as unnecessary and expensive. A U.S. Weather Bureau official even claimed that a major hurricane could never hit Galveston because the Gulf's shallow waters would stop it. The warning that was ignored. In late August 1900, a tropical storm formed in the Caribbean Sea. Cuban forecasters in Havana, experts with long experience, warned that the storm was powerful and heading toward the Gulf of Mexico and Texas. They sent urgent messages north, but the U.S. Weather Bureau in Washington, D.C. distrusted the Cubans. There was a bitter professional rivalry between the two weather services. Washington even restricted the Cuban reports and announced that the storm would turn northeast away from Texas. This was a fatal, arrogant mistake. The storm hits. On Saturday, the 8th of September 1900, the hurricane struck Galveston with full force. Winds reached 140 miles per hour. But the real killer was the storm surge, a wall of water over 15 feet high that swept across an island only 9 feet above sea level. Within hours, the entire city disappeared under churning, merciless water. Wooden houses collapsed first. Their broken timbers became a giant, grinding raft of debris that crushed brick mansions and even solid public buildings. Families climbed to rooftops, but the water kept rising. At an orphanage, nuns tied children to themselves with clothesline to save them, but the sea was stronger. By morning, between 6,000 and 8,000 people were dead. It remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. Half the city was completely gone. Bodies lay everywhere. To prevent disease, typhoid and cholera, survivors had to light massive funeral pyres that burned for weeks. The rebirth. Raising a city. Most cities would have been abandoned. But Galveston survivors refused to leave. Instead, they decided to physically remake the island. First, they built a seawall, a curved concrete barrier over 15 feet high facing the Gulf. Construction began in 1902. Second, and even more amazingly, they razed the entire city. More than 2,000 buildings, homes, churches, even a cathedral were lifted using jack screws. Workers turned the screws inch by inch, while families continued living inside the suspended buildings. Then, millions of cubic yards of sand and sediment were pumped from the seabed into the space below. By 1910, the heart of the city stood several feet higher than before. The hidden cost. Houston rises. But the disaster had another consequence. It shifted economic power away from Galveston. Investors lost confidence. A new rival city, Houston, 50 miles inland, safe from storms, began to grow. When oil was discovered in East Texas, Houston built a deep ship channel and became the center of the oil industry. Galveston's golden age ended. Houston became one of the largest cities in America. The lesson that changed America. The Galveston disaster forced the U.S. Weather Bureau to reform. The arrogance that ignored the Cuban warnings gave way to cooperation and better forecasting. Today's hurricane tracking systems exist partly because of the 6,000 to 8,000 lives lost in Galveston. Final truth. The official story long claimed the storm was unforeseeable, but the truth is, a clear warning did arrive from Havana. It was pride, rivalry, and human arrogance, not ignorance, that silenced the alarm. And that single failure destroyed a golden city in one afternoon. Yet from the ruins came the seawall, the raised city, and a wiser nation. Galveston still stands today higher, stronger, and defiant. And its lesson remains urgent. As warming oceans feed stronger storms, we must ask, have we truly learned what Galveston paid so dearly to teach?